try to rewrite it for you.
No, thank you.
And I am not going over the 70 weeks.
No, come on, she missed it.
I was trying, that was something.
You're going to send me the video.
I was going to say, I got enough problems trying to cover chapter 11,
I
10 and
know.
11 tonight. I can't
I
go back
think
to
that's
9.
a
You're on
lot.
your own.
It is a lot. 10 and 11. Did you? Why do you do it that way? Because it goes together.
You're on your own.
10 and
Most
11.
teachers are that way. They're like, here's your chapters. You're on your
Yeah, you
own.
missed it. Too bad.
Too bad.
Oh.
And if you make it wrong on the test, too bad.
And there will be a test.
Oh, good. I'll be gone. I'll be absent.
I'll be in Oklahoma. Send my test over there.
Oh, goodness. Who's last? Would you hurry up?
Who left?
Come on. Come on. Come on.
Can you believe we're almost done?
No, I cannot.
Yeah, didn't he?
I want more.
Really, really good students.
We'll do it on our own.
No.
Oh, we'll do another one.
Okay.
We'll do it on our
For
own.
those of you who don't know,
Oh, this is Chris.
Miss Lorraine
Oh,
has
quit.
a brand new
Oh, quit.
baby boy,
Yeah.
grandbaby,
Grandbaby.
Xander.
You're trying to make me cry.
No.
And within 24 hours, he had to have surgery on his lungs. They had to put a tube in.
Oh, yeah.
But it went beautifully.
Good.
So she's working on getting the wheels to turn faster at Walmart, so she can take a leave of absence to be there with Zan and the family. So if you all want to know specifically how to pray for her, at the Walmart, they'll let her get out of here very, very soon.
Good.
That's okay.
It's
But
important.
I got to say that she's not going to get out of here really, really soon.
I have to listen to you.
I got like 6.5 hours worth of material.
It's a lot.
Seriously,
Yeah,
let me
that's
tell you something. I don't know who the nut job was that put chapter 10 and 11 together, but I was going to print. I don't have a clue how I'm going to get through chapter 11. I can probably get through chapter 10.
But why don't we put part of it next week on 12?
No, because then we're going to Mother's Day. I can't do that.
No, I meant combine it, just 12 short.
No, you messed me all up.
It just says the end. I mean,
It's the end. You realize short Daniel is
Anyways, I was going to print out my notes and give them to you. It was 97 pages.
Oh my
So I was like,
Lord.
yeah, I'm not going to do that. But in chapter 11, and I did not count this, all right? So I'm going to give you something that I read in one of the commentaries I was using, and it may be right, it may be wrong, I don't know. But in Daniel chapter 11 alone, there is 135 different prophecies. And basically up until verse 35, all have been fulfilled. So we're going to go through each and every one of those today in great detail. And you should be out of here by Thursday. So,
No, I have to leave before then.
all right. So we're almost done. We're going to fly through today. And I'm not going. There's no way I'm going to get through every bit of detail in chapter 11, but at least I'll give you an overview. So let's watch the video. It's 3 minutes. They're getting shorter and shorter. This one's only 3 minutes long. So let's hope it works. Turn it up. You ready? Well, how was that for a video? Here we go.
That was
I was short.
Yeah.
I was short.
We blinked.
There.
Welcome to the Hall Testament book of Daniel, we find amazing prophecies that have been fulfilled, and many yet to be fulfilled. And though Bible prophecy may fascinate us, is there any real reason to study these texts? Yes. Bible prophecy is to teach us that God and His Word can be trusted, and Bible prophecy provides insight and understanding about things to come. If we look to the 11th chapter of Daniel, we see God's prophet praying along the banks of the Tigris River. There, God shows him cataclysmic events to come, and the cruel leaders who will bring disaster upon this earth. And finally, the Antichrist. All warriors of their time. In this single chapter of the Bible, we get new and interactive era of history that was accurately predicted in detail long before it ever happened. But there is no warrior more powerful than what God sent to Daniel. And although this being remains in the background of this vision, he is actually the hero of this story. So who is this supernatural warrior sent to Daniel from God? Like the Archangel, an agent of Babylon.
No detail in that video.
No.
No detail. All right, we're going to get right to it. So we're going through chapter 10 and chapter 11. Chapter 10 will reinforce Ephesians 6. Stay with me for a minute. All right. Chapter 11 will basically start to fill in what we've already studied in greater detail. All right, so what you're getting is, we get the first verse in 10, which is in the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a message was received to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. And the message was true and one of great conflict. That word conflict in some versions is warfare. Gotta love that. But he understood the message and had an understanding of the vision. So let's put this into context. We are now at the end. All right? For the last couple of weeks, we had gone in the narrative up to Daniel chapter 6. Okay? And that was the lion's den. All right? And then when we went to 7, 8, and 9, we backed up in time. I can't move that screen that way. Back into Babylon. All right. So what happens now is we are in the 3rd year of Cyrus. What happened 2 years prior to this? Cyrus's decree to send the Jews back into Israel. So Daniel's getting this vision 2 years after the decree, the first decree. There's 3 different decrees. Okay, the first decree is sent to go back into the land, and Daniel's a bit. He tells you here. He understood the message and had an understanding of the vision. All right, so this is a little different from the standpoint that he understands it. All right, so this is filling in the blanks to these visions that we've had in chapter 7, 8, and then even going farther back into 2. All right, so he gets it. He understands it. And what's the first thing that Daniel does when he gets a vision? He prays. Right. you ever hear of the Daniel plan or the Daniel diet? It comes from this chapter. In those days, I, Daniel, had been mourning for 3 entire weeks. I did not eat any tasty food, nor did meat or wine enter my mouth, nor did I use any ointment at all until the entire 3 weeks was complete. All right. On the 24th day, not only do we know the year that this took place, go back here. The year that this took place is 536 BC. We know the year, and now we know the date. And this is on the Jewish calendar. So on the 24th day of the first month, while I was on the banks of the great river, that is the Tigris, I lifted my eyes and looked, and behold, there was a certain man dressed in linen, whose waist was girded with a belt of pure gold of Upaz. All right, so let's do a couple of things. Let's go ahead.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Vision in 1, in this vision, it's the same thing, it's the same vision. It's a different vision.
In 10 and 11? You're talking about
No, right here on 10, verse 1, it says, the message came to him in a vision. And
Yes.
then, of course, here, it talks about a vision.
It's all the same.
So it's all the same thing.
Chapter-
so this is now gonna,
Yeah, chapter 10 and 11 are really one big chapter. Okay?
Right.
So the vision that he's seeing, we'll learn about in chapter 11, because it doesn't tell you in chapter 10 what the vision is. It tells you in chapter 11 what the vision is. But it is, when you say the same, what do you mean? Same as in chapter 10?
I'm sorry, because I know most people probably get this.
No, that's just good.
But when it says that the understanding of the message came to him in a vision.
Yeah.
And then we get into verse 4, etc., and it talks about the vision. After which he's talking of mourning for 3 weeks because whatever he saw was so horrendous that it absolutely just wiped him out.
Exactly.
He
That's
put in mourning for 3 weeks before the vision.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, he had the vision and then was in mourning.
Yeah.
He was in mourning. And yeah, because we're going to see that this vision that he had, which is explained in chapter 11, is horrific.
Right.
It goes through all of this, all of these kings, and we'll talk about that here in a second, that basically are going after Israel.
It says when it came to me.
Okay. It just seemed like it was a little out of order, so I just want to make sure that
Yeah,
I get it.
yeah. Did the vision come to him when he was in mourning, or did the vision come to him when he was? Let's see, Heather.
See, look at it, it says after.
Had been mourning for 3 weeks.
Were completed, and then go
Yeah.
on the 24th day of the first month.
Yeah. Behold, he saw a certain man. Okay.
But he already
Now
had
I'm getting where you're getting.
Right, but he'd already
Okay.
had
The vision that is in chapter 11, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit, I believe he saw before he went in mourning. Now he is seeing this guy. We're going to talk about this guy here in a second, which is the second vision. Does that help you?
And that makes sense because for him to go into mourning, he has just seen something that he probably never would have believed he would have seen regarding his people.
You got it.
Because he's looking at the end of the 70 years and say, okay, we're going home now.
Yeah.
We have learned our lesson, but guess what?
No, we haven't.
Now we
Now
have
we
it.
have it.
Okay, so let's go back. This is going to be fun. We're never going to get through it all, but this is going to be fun.
Okay.
So we know that this happens in 536 BC. The first decree has happened 2 years ago. All right? And the first decree goes out, and only 40,000 Jews go back to the land. So Daniel is upset. He's upset because he's like, what are you talking about? Now, so we know the year it happened. We know what happened 2 years prior, the first decree. But what's interesting is we know the day that it happened. And why is that interesting? And it's I don't want to read too much into this, but it's very interesting. On the 24th day of the first month. Well, let's look at that. What's the 24th day of the first month? The first month is Nisan. I never pronounced that right. That's the Jewish calendar. Well, what happens in the first month? Well, first of all, he's been in mourning for 21 days. It's the 24th, so he started going in mourning on the 3rd. He started fasting on the 3rd. Well, he ended fasting on the 24th. Cool. The 14th is Passover. The middle of his fast is Passover, and oh, guess what? It also leads into the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So, again, I don't want to read too much. I don't want to spiritualize too much into this, but he is mourning at the exact time of Passover. And the vision, the second vision that he gets is this vision of a person. All right? And we get the description. His body, we got a little bit of the description back here. And behold, there was a certain man dressed in linen, whose waist was girded with a belt of pure gold and say it again. Thank you. All right. His body also was like beryl. Thank you. His face had the appearance of lightning. His eyes were like flaming torches. His arms and feet were like gleaming of, like the gleam of polished bronze, and the sound of his words were like of a turmoil.
This is the sound of a multitude of minds.
Hold on. Don't take my thunder. All right. Now I, Daniel, alone saw the vision, while the men who were with me did not see the vision. Nevertheless, a great dread fell on them, and they ran away and hid. All right?
That would be me.
Yeah. All right. So let's keep going. Let's keep going because we're going to find out who this guy is. So I was left alone and saw this great vision, yet no strength was left in me, for my natural color turned to a deadly pallor, and I retained no strength. Okay. Interesting. So he's already had the vision of chapter 11 that we're going to talk about. Now, he's mourned, he's prayed, he's gone through this fasting for 21 days, and now he's getting the second vision. He's getting a glimpse of something, of someone. Now, let's see if this sounds familiar. This is John speaking from the book of Revelation.
Right.
Then I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me. I saw one like a son of man, clothed in a robe reaching to his feet, and girded across his chest with a golden sash. His head and his hair, which Daniel doesn't talk about, were white like white wool, like snow, and his eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet were like burnished bronze. When he had been made to glow in the furnace, okay, and his voice was like the sound of many waters, and his face was like the sun shining in its strength. How did John react? When I saw him, I fell at my feet like a dead man. They're seeing the same guy. That guy is Jesus. He is seeing Jesus. And this isn't the first time that Jesus has shown up in the book of Daniel. When was the first time he showed up? What do you think? Now, I'm taking... all right, you can have your popcorn. I was going to take the popcorn away. Yes! At the fiery furnace. All right? So Daniel is seeing Jesus.
Right.
Just like John was seeing Jesus. Interesting. Interesting. Now, we go on. Did I get your attention yet?
And
Okay,
it begs to answer the question of one of our favorite songs.
What's that?
The one that says, that's about, what will I do when I'm before Him?
Mm-hmm. You're going to fall to your face.
Fall to your face. No
And-
questions asked.
And what's going to happen? Just like it always happens. Then behold, a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees, and said to me, O Daniel, man of high esteem, understand the words that I'm about to tell you, and stand upright, for I have been sent to you. This isn't Jesus. This is Gabriel. So he has this first vision that we're going to talk about from chapter 11. He mourns for 21 days, and then he gets this second vision of seeing Christ in his full glory. He falls to his face, eats some dirt, the guys around him run, and then all of a sudden, Gabriel's here. Now we're going to find out about Ephesians 6, which I'm into this. Okay, and then, and when he had spoken these words to me, I stood up trembling. Then he said to me, like every good angel says to everyone that they come in contact with, do not be afraid. Daniel, from the first day that you set your heart on understanding this and on humbling yourself before God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to your words. So, again, we talked about last week where we timed how long it took for an angel to get there. It took a little longer for Gabriel to get there this time, and we're going to find out why. But the prince of the king of Persia was withstanding me for 21 days. The prince of the kingdom of Persia? Hold on that for a second. Then behold, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, for I had been left there with the kings of Persia. Welcome to your first demonstration of spiritual warfare. Satan has an army. Alright? He has an army of demons, and guess what? They have assignments. Alright? We're going to find out right now that when Gabriel was sent from heaven, when Daniel started praying, he came up against the prince of the kingdom of Persia, which is a demonic spirit in Satan's army that was holding him back. And he had to wait for Michael, the great archangel, who came and basically made it so he could get through to give Daniel the message. Now, it's a little confusing to me because Daniel says in the beginning he understood it, all right? But Gabriel came, I don't know if he came to reinforce it or at least give him some explanation. I don't know. All right, that's a little confusing to me. Haven't quite gotten there yet. It's taken me long enough to go through the 135 different prophecies that are in chapter 11. I'll still come back to this one later, all right? But anyways, so we've got demonic warfare going on, all right? And we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So let's keep going with the story, because this is a good story. All right? Now, I have come to give you an understanding of what will happen to your people. Catch that. To your people. Remember we talked last week, well, some of you don't remember because you just weren't here. But the 70 weeks of Daniel has nothing to do with Christians. It is a Jewish prophecy. All right? Daniel now is filling in some of those blanks with when he sits there to give you understanding of what will happen to your people in the latter days, for the vision pertains to the days yet future. This is one of those reasons, again, I'm not going to get dogmatic at all, but I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture and a pre-millennial second coming of Jesus. One of the reasons I believe in a pre-tribulation rapture, meaning the church gets raptured before the tribulation starts, is for some of these verses. All right? The tribulation period is not for God, Jesus' bride. It is for God's people, the Israel people. All right? So we're out of the picture. Now, there are people that believe in a mid-trib and a post-trib rapture. And you know what? The Bible is not crystal clear on that. So while I don't have any problems sort of arguing and discussing my opinion, that's what it is. It's an interpretation that I hold to. But if somebody comes with a mid-trib or a post-trib, you know what? They can duke it out just as well too, because it's not clear. What's well,
The difference is you don't want to be on the
I don't want to be here for the tribulation.
Going on. That's the difference.
But yet, who is it for?
What's that?
But yet, who is it for?
It's for the people that aren't believers. That's what he's saying.
Or is it for the people who don't yet? I mean, it's like, you know,
No.
we as
Right.
Christians believe,
Yeah.
but yet his people,
Are the
chosen
Jews.
ones,
It-
are not quite there yet.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying.
So
That's
who's
not
to
our
say?
problem.
We might be gone.
I hope we are.
But
I'm
that's why I
personally
believe in
never
all
heard that
three.
way. And
That's
it's fine.
Because we might be gone, but his people still remain.
Absolutely. Because there are tribulation saints.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, under the altar. So anyways, I just want to throw that in there. I want to keep going. All right. So, when he had spoken to me, this is Gabriel, according to these words, I turned my face to the ground and became speechless. All right. Good old Daniel. All right. He's eating dirt at this point. All right.
Can you really see Daniel as speechless, though?
Oh yeah.
I mean, only
Yeah.
before God.
Only
Oh,
before
right,
God.
right.
Only before. Absolutely.
Otherwise, yeah, I think that's good.
And he's seen Gabriel before. He's talked to Gabriel on a few different occasions. So this guy's become a buddy. I mean, he shows up every couple of,
Every 20 years or
5
something.
years, so yeah, whatever. All right, so, and behold, one who resembled a human being was touching my lips. This is still, I believe this is still Gabriel, okay? Because an angel can, we've learned this before through Daniel, an angel can manifest themselves into a human-looking person, all right? So I still believe this is Gabriel. Then I opened my mouth and spoke and said to him who was standing before me, O my Lord, as a result of this vision, anguish has come upon me, and I have retained no strength. For how can such a servant of my Lord talk with such as my Lord? He's saying, how can I talk to you? As for me, there remains just now no strength in me, nor has any breath been left in me. So he's down on his knees. Then the one with human appearance touched me again and strengthened me and said, O man of high esteem, do not be afraid. Peace be with you. Take courage. Be courageous. Now, as soon as he spoke this to me, this is Daniel, I received my strength and said, May my Lord speak, for you have strengthened me. Then he said, Do you understand why I came to you? But I shall now return to the fight against the prince of Persia. So I am going forth, and behold, the prince of Greece is about to come. The prince of peace, or Greece, is basically the next in line. Alright? The next kingdom in line. However, I will tell you what is inscribed in the writings of truth. Yet there is no one who stands firmly with me against these forces except Michael, your prince. And there ended the chapter. All right? So I love this writings of truth. Writings of truth are basically the scripture. Put it this way, it's God's word. So we're not told in chapter 10 about the story, the vision that started this whole thing. That's what chapter 11 is. Chapter 10, 11, and really chapter 12 all go together. It's all one big hunk of stuff. All right? The point of chapter 10 is setting up really what the battle is all about, and it goes to this. All right? This chapter, in these 3 chapters in Daniel, basically are telling you and showing you Ephesians 6:12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the forces, the world's forces of this darkness, against spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. There is spiritual warfare going on. And I hate to break the news to you, but in a lot of cases, we are nothing but pawns. Okay?
For anyone familiar with Ferretti, who wrote several very good books on that several years ago, this is how he came. I bet you this is exactly how he came up with the titles. I can't remember them, but they've got part of that in there.
Oh, yeah. So anyways, now we get into this vision. All right? This vision of what's to come. And I still have an hour, but there is no earthly way that I'm going to get through any of this in detail. But what you've got, if you read Daniel chapter 11, what will happen to you is your eyeballs will start to bleed, because it's like, what in God's name is going on here? Now, here in chapter 11 is where, and excuse me, I'm going to use a word, and I hope it doesn't offend anybody, but here's my word. Liberal scholars will basically take the book of Daniel and say, it's not real. It wasn't written when you say it was written, because this chapter 11, is so accurate that it can't possibly be prophetic.
A little too for their blood?
I mean, seriously. Again, I did not count this, but one of the commentaries that I was using says there's 135 different prophecies in chapter 11 alone. Okay? So basically, it's the 5A kings. All right? We're going to keep it nice and simple. It's the 5A kings. Ahasuerus. Remember the book of Esther? That's him. Also known as Xerxes. All right? Alexander. We know all about Alexander. We spent a whole day talking about him. Antioch the Great, or the Third. Antiochus Epiphanes, Antiochus the Third, Antiochus Epiphanes the Fourth. All of these, up till verse 35, have been complete in great, great detail. Verse 36 to 45 is the last king. That's the Antichrist. Now, if you remember when we talked Daniel chapter 8 about, is it chapter 7? Yeah. Okay. When we talk about Antiochus Epiphanes, we go directly from Antiochus Epiphanes to Antichrist. Well, he does it again here. All right? Now, this chart is going to be difficult to read, but basically what it's going to do is take all of these prophecies of Daniel and sort of put them in their place. Makes a lot of sense, right? So, you've got Daniel chapter 2 sitting here. Daniel chapter 2 goes through the statue. The head of gold, the arms of silver, the sides of brass, the eggs of iron, and then the feet of clay. Now we're going to throw the 70 weeks on top of that. All right? And where's 70 weeks? Down here. Basically, the 70 weeks is right in here, the end of the Medo-Persian Empire. They rebuild the temple. Then you got the 62 weeks until the Messiah is cut off. All right? Well, we've gone into the early Roman Empire at that point. Okay? We've gone from Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece. Now we're into Rome. All right? So now we get this unreckoned time. The difference between what we talked about last week, between the end of the 69th week, when the Messiah is cut off, till the covenant, which is the start of the 70th week, which is the tribulation. All right? So you get the tribulation period over here, which is the last week. Now you get into Daniel chapter 8, we get the 2 horns, you get the 1 horn that then turned into 4 horns. Well, that's the difference between Medo-Persia and Greece. All right? Now you go over to chapter 7 of Daniel, and you get the beast. All right, you get the lion, the bear, the leopard, the harlot, all that stuff, which falls into the tribulation period. All right, see how all this is starting to sort of fit together? Now, where we are today in chapter 11, we are going to fill in a whole bunch of detail from basically Medo-Persian into the Roman Empire, really the beginning of the Roman Empire, and then the last set throws you back into the tribulation period. It's amazing, this timeline of all these prophecies and how they fit together. All right? How they fit together. Daniel basically gives us and the Jews, really the Jews, their entire history. All right? From the age of the Gentiles into the end, which is the tribulation period. Is that cool? What?
Talk about mercy and grace.
Because
Look at how many millennia you have between the separation and the last week. That's mercy and grace.
Yep. Oh yeah, we're living it right now. Right there is the age of grace. Welcome to it.
And
You're
it's
in it.
like, why wait? But yeah, thank you.
So, this 2,500-year prophecy, we're living in it right now. So now, I don't know how we're going to do it, but here we go. So chapter 11, I'm going to try as hard as I can to make all this make sense. And I got to tell you, I don't know how I'm going. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to do it. So we go back to here. Basically, verse 1 and 2 is Ahasuerus, Xerxes, Book of Esther. We get into Alexander the Great, which is 3 and 4. Very quick.
You got any books?
Right there on the piano.
Okay. Thank you.
Then we're going to take a lot of time of this between verse 10 and 20, and it's really verse 5 through 20. That's going to go through the battles of Greece. And we're going to show you the map again. We've already learned about Antiochus Epiphanes. Yeah, I said it right. Antiochus Epiphanes. Which, I mean, bad dude. And then we'll get to the Antichrist. So, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I arose to be encouraged and a protection for him. Great. I don't really. That's wonderful. So, we enter into the story of Esther. And we get this. And now, I will tell you the truth. Behold, 3 more kings are going to arise in Persia. Then a 4th will gain far more riches than all of them. As soon as he becomes strong through his riches, he will arouse the whole empire against the realm of Greece. This is the story of Ahasuerus and the book of Esther. What does he do? He brings all of his folks together, if you remember, for a big old feast where he tries to get his wife to come out and, show herself, and she wouldn't. So he fires his wife. I don't know how you do that, but I guess you can. I mean, he fires his wife.
Yeah, you gotta be king.
All right.
You gotta be a king.
Brings in Esther, and guess what? He tries to go up against Greece, and it doesn't turn out well. So what then happens? Well, we go on to the next verse, which is basically Alexander the Great. We went into great detail of Alexander the Great, but here it is. And a mighty king will arise, and he will rule with great authority and do as he pleases. That's Alexander the Great. All right? In 12, 13 years, he conquers the world. I mean, but doesn't this sound familiar? But as soon as he has arisen, his kingdom will be broken up and parceled out towards the 4 points of the compass. though not to his own descendants, nor according to his authority which he wielded. For his sovereignty will be uprooted and given to others besides them. Well, we know what happened. All right? We know what happened. His empire, after a bunch of fighting, and the bunch of fighting that we're going to talk about is Antiochus the Great. All right? But basically what happened is Ptolemy. All right. He ruled Egypt. He fought through all the battles. He ruled Egypt, and then Seleucus was over here. So, in essence, we sort of drilled down into these two because there was 4 others. There's 2 others, I should say. There's a total of 4 of his generals that took over his being Alexander the Great's territory or his kingdom. None of them were strong. None of them were strong as Alexander. So what happens is these two sort of leave our story because where are these two? Where is?
They're in the Middle East. They're in the middle.
Where's the middle? Right here. All right, right there. So what we get is a series of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Now, what's amazing is from verse 5 to verse 20, we get all the back and forths. Bear with me. Then the king of the south will grow strong, along with one of his princes who will gain ascension over him and obtain dominion. His dominion will be a great dominion indeed. All right, so everything direction-wise is from Israel. All right, Israel's the center. So when they talk about south, well, it's Egypt. When they talk about north, well, it's Syria. It's everything above that. All right? So we get that. Okay? So he's this little border struggle. Oh, let me go back. This little border struggle goes on for 200 years. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Okay? So we keep going on. For some years, they will form an alliance, and the daughter of the king of the south will come to the king of the north to carry out a peaceful arrangement. That's interesting. But she will not retain her position of power, nor will he remain with his power, but she will be given up, along with those who brought her in, and the ones who sired her, as well as he who supported her in these times. Okay, so this alliance is Beatrice, daughter of Egypt's Ptolemy II. And I'm going to kill the names, okay? And she basically married the Syria king Antiochus II. All right? The later part of the verse refers to the political advantage they hoped this alliance would produce. Antiochus divorced his wife to marry Beatrice. It didn't end up well because Antiochus II's wife later murdered Beatrice, her baby son, and even Antiochus by poisoning him. Thus, she brought her own son, Seleucus II, to the throne. So,
wow.
So basically,
sounds like a soap opera.
It's a soap opera. So again, after some years, they will form an alliance. All right, one gives a daughter to here. We're all family now, right?
Yeah.
No, we're not. Okay, we're not family because when the ex-wife gets involved and kills everybody. Okay, I mean,
regardless of what my husband thinks, my son is heir to the throne.
So again, put yourself into this. This is happening around 280, between 261 and 246 BC. So almost 300 years before this, Daniel is writing this prophecy. And guess what? How can you get this much detail? an alliance will form, an arrangement, but she will not retain her position of power. Whoa! All right? Pretty cool. It gets better. All right? But one of the descendants of her line will rise in his place, and he will come against their army and enter the fortresses of the king of the north. And he will deal with them and display great strength. All right? This is Beatrice's brother stood in his father's place. Her name was, his name was Ptolemy the Third. And basically, he conquered Syria and sacked their great treasures. Keep that treasures in mind, because this is what's going to happen. All right? Also, their gods with their metal images and their precious vessels of silver and gold, he will take into captivity to Egypt. He goes up to Syria and he takes his stuff away. And he, on his part, will refrain from attacking the king of the north for some years. Well, that's true. He will. For 13 years, this, I guess you go up and you take all their stuff and they don't have anybody, you kill them all. What the heck? We'll just break for a little bit. All right? Then the latter will enter the realm of the king of the south. But will return to his own lands. His son will mobilize and assemble a multitude of great forces, and one of them will keep on coming and overflow the passes pass through, that he may again wage war up to his very fortress. All right. So Syria's I'm going to kill this name. Colonicus. All right. He's the guy from that's coming from the king of the south. Okay, would attack Egypt, but retreats soundly because he was beaten. All right, he will wage war up to his own forces. So what happens is the king of the north comes down to the king of the south, down to Egypt, gets beat. He gets beat so bad that when he goes back up, he actually sacks his own people. Okay? So he wages war up to his very fortress. He goes back to his land, and not a good thing happens. Okay. The king of the south will be enraged and go forth and fight the king of the north. Then the latter will rise in a great multitude, but the multitude will be given into the hands of the former. Then the multitude is carried away, his heart will be lifted up, and he will cause tens of thousands to fall, yet he will not prevail. So now we've moved on now to Ptolemy the Fourth, and basically he ruled from 223 to 203 BC, devastated the Syrian army under Antiochus III the Great. Egypt advantage would be very brief. All right? Again, I'm going this deep. Okay. Keep going. For the king of the north will again rise in a great multitude than the former, and after an interval of some years he will press on with a great army and have much equipment. 13 years later, Antiochus returned with a great army, and in a series of strikes against Egypt, brought Palestine into his control as far as the south. So, let's go back to our little map here. Remember where I'm at. 42. Okay. Let's go back to our map here. So, the king of the south basically ruled over Israel. These fights are going back and forth, back and forth. Now we get to the point where Seleucus, am I saying that right? Seleucus. All right. This is Antiochus. All right. This is Ptolemy. All right. Finally, he comes down, and now they are beating back and holding the land. They're holding Israel at this point. Now, we'll keep going. Having fun yet?
No.
It's like a history lesson that's crazy.
Right.
All right, and I'm trying to go through, yes?
But his book does us a huge favor because it breaks down
Each one.
into big chunks. This is about Persia, this is about Greece, this is about Israel, about this. And that's what I have to keep referring back to
just for the general idea, you know, first of
Well, you go back
where
to
we're going.
you go back to this. This is all intertestamental stuff. All right, the Old Testament has stopped. Okay, we haven't gotten to the point yet of Antiochus Epiphany where we get the Maccabees and some of the stuff that's going on with the Maccabees. We haven't gotten there yet. We're close. But basically, Daniel is filling in this stuff basically right here. All right. So we're in between. We're still in Greece, the fighting of Greece, but we're going to turn after we get to the Antiochus Epiphany to basically where Rome takes over. Because what happens, and I'm gonna speed this up a little bit because I'm getting sick of listening to it. But what happens is Antiochus Epiphany is just going down to Egypt and trying to attack them, and we're getting all this stuff going on. And finally, let me get back to this. These guys are going, this is nuts. And there's this little group called the Romans. And they're like, hey, can you come help us? And they're like, sure, we'll come help. And we'll also take everything you've got with it, okay? So we're getting to the point. This all leads, I mean, amazingly, this all leads to the cross. Because we're at the point where the Greeks are they've been doing this infighting with themselves for so long, and we're coming up to the end of it when we get into Antiochus Epiphany, that the Romans start to get involved, and they take over. All right? And when they take over, it's not very long until the Messiah comes. And when we get to the Romans, you know, we get this little period of time, you know, of Rome being the power, but when we get to the tribulation period, the feet of clay and iron, it's the reborn Roman Empire that comes back, that is used during the Great Tribulation period. Whew. All right. You mind if I skip over and go to Antiochus Epiphany?
No.
All right, because, well, you know what? I got to do at least something here.
It's interesting that when I was in Egypt visiting, that I didn't know the Ptolemies, that they were Greek. Well, they were Greek.
Yeah.
And then it says in here, Cleopatra was really Syrian. Was Assyrian.
You're taking all my joy. Because
I thought she was really Greek.
Because Cleopatra.
The daughter of.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. No, it's good.
I didn't know
so
that.
Flood.
She was Make the thunder not so loud.
I thought
there
she
you
was.
go.
Yeah, I thought
Hold on a second.
Then she was in the book here. It says she's the daughter of Assyria, and he married to Ptolemy, and then she ends up ruling because she was given it at a young age. I know that to the king. He was like 12 or 13.
Okay.
He dies or something, and she rules, and that's when.
Where's Cleopatra? Cleopatra
It's on line 17.
Yeah. Well, okay.
Daughter of women, she was first.
So is Cleopatra Antiochus the fourth Epiphany, or is she the third?
She was okay.
Because I'm off my notes.
Antiochus, and she was spouse to the young King Ptolemy.
Yeah.
Epiphanes.
Epiphany. Okay.
Before.
So
It's the very last one.
Son of the Egyptian king.
Yes. So basically.
They have Romans to help him.
But they're Greek too. Even
Yes.
though they're
So what happens is Antiochus Epiphany, which we're in now. We've sort of skipped over a bunch of verses because we've gotten to the point that even I'm falling asleep. But what happens is, same thing with Beatrice. What happens is Ptolemy gives Cleopatra to the Syrians this time. All right? And they're like, well, I got a spy in the palace now. This is good. Except Cleopatra sides with her new husband instead of with her father.
Right.
All right? Bad deal. All right? But we've gone through Antiochus Epiphany, who is just
horrible,
a bad dude.
Right.
And every time Daniel gives you Antiochus Epiphany, he immediately goes to the Antichrist after he gives you Antiochus Epiphany. Because Antiochus Epiphany is in essence the Old Testament's Antichrist. He is the forerunner, the display of what the Antichrist is to come.
He's John the Baptist.
Yeah, I guess so. So we go through Daniel chapter 20 or 11, chapter 20, or verse 21 through 35. That goes through all of Antiochus Epiphanes. We get to, and I'm going to try to find this really quick here, this little line, and this is in verse 30. For ships of Kittim will come against him, therefore he will be disheartened, and he will return and become enraged at the holy covenant and take action. So he will come back and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. Okay, this one I at least wanted to get to. Ships of Kittim represents the Romans.
Oh, this is western coastline to me.
Yeah, well, it's west. Yeah,
Right, the west.
but the ships of Kittim, they believe, are
The
Romans. So basically, this is where we get to the point where the Egypt is asking for help from the Romans for Antiochus Epiphanes, trying to take their land.
Yes. Linus. Must be the Roman guy
Yep.
in charge.
So, we get to the end of the Antiochus Epiphanes, which is chapter 34, and basically when we get to chapter 36, we get to this guy. So, everything in chapter 11, verse 1 to 35 has all been fulfilled. And if you would love to try to figure out every one of the prophecies, I can give you plenty of resources. I got 97 pages of freaking notes. All right? Because I'm trying to figure out how in the world.
Is there that many?
There's 135 prophecies.
In chapter 11, from 1 to 35, you're saying?
Yeah. And they're to a level of detail that is crazy. And you're sitting there reading it, and you're going, why in the world is this even in the Bible? Okay? Why in the world did God decide to put all of this in the Bible? Because it's really important for us. Does it matter?
It's one of those where God wants every soul that can be saved to be saved. And until on this earth there is no soul that can be saved, God is going to try.
Yep. I'm standing next to electronic equipment, so I don't know if I want to say this. But I think he's showing off.
Oh, no.
I think he's sitting here going,
See, I told you.
you folks don't know it, but I sort of know everything that's going to happen. Let me just give you a little bit. Just about 400 or 500 years. Let me just show you what's going on. I mean, to the level of detail where we've got basically the what happened with Beatrice. Who could predict that? Okay, these guys are going to give his daughter, and then this guy's going to be married, and his wife's going to be a little upset, so she's going to kill. That's in. Or Cleopatra. I'm going to give another daughter. Now I'm going to go the other way. And I'm going to give my daughter to them, thinking that I got a spy. And now my daughter says, you know what? I really like this guy. He's a crazy murderer, but what the heck? I like it. All right. So now I'm going against my father. Who can predict that? Who can predict that? 400 years in advance.
I can't even remember that after I read it.
I know. Trust me, you read this, and I'm telling you, every time I read chapter 11, I'm like, it's like reading Leviticus. It's like, I know there's something there. I know there's a lot of stuff. But you're like, but then you sit there and match up history to the Bible, and you're like,
It's all there.
I was going to use a word. I'm going to use a word. It holds back word. Damn! How accurate is this?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what you get. I mean, it's insane. And then you got people going, and I'm sorry, I'm going to make fun of people now, but you got people sitting there going, well, the Revelations, come on, too much symbolism there. I can't understand. understand any of
The
that.
dam is already there, just read the water.
I mean,
Oh,
he's sitting there and he's like, look, I've predicted all of this. I'm showing you this is God. I'm showing you I got it. I know what's going on. Here's some proof. All right, and guess what? Look at it. To the detail. Done.
and whether you take it literal or whether you take it figurative, it's gonna add up.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, and trust me, I think when you get to the book of Revelation, you're going to be going, what
You
are
don't
the
understand.
dragonflies with human heads? What?
Yeah.
And we're going to find out. That's I get it. You know
When
what I
we
mean?
get there, we're gonna go, oh,
I knew that. So let's get to the Antichrist. All right. Then a king who will do as he pleases. I'm starting in verse 36. And he will exalt and magnify himself. What's that?
Trump.
No, he
sorry.
comes from the
I'm
Roman
sorry.
Empire. He comes from the Holy Roman Empire.
He does
He's
what he
not-
pleases,
no.
though.
All right, and he will exalt. It does sound like. And he will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will speak monstrous things against the God of gods. And he will prosper until the indignation is finished. For that which is decreed will be done. I mean, God's telling you, this guy's coming. He will do as he's pleased until I come and stamp him out. He will show no regard for the gods of his father, small g, or for the desires of women. This is an interesting little thing there. Some people look at this. This is the Antichrist that we're talking about. Some people look at that and say, okay, no offense to anybody, this guy's gay. I mean, that's one of the things. I don't know. I don't think that's what it means. I don't know. All right?
You know,
I think it
King
goes with
James
the
has got a
Sharia
big
law
deed for that.
stuff.
What's
I says in King James has got a big deed for that.
Does it?
Yeah. And it's got a good reason for that too, I think.
Mine says this is usually interpreted as Tammuz. When you look it up in Ezekiel, it's the fertility god.
There's that, and there's the fact that in the, but in the
Says
Muslim religion,
Right. God of
women
his father
are
is
not-
that phrase.
You
so
don't desire it. You can't lust over
not
the alcohol.
Again,
If you take that complete phrase, that's complete Hebrew phrase right there in that, it would indicate that the Antichrist would come from a national heritage that once was Christian. So, it would be the Almighty. That's in that,
Could be.
that one book that I read.
Yeah. I mean, again, some of this stuff, they throw it out, and we're sitting there, and we're going to try to make it make sense. I'll
Yeah.
guarantee you it will make sense.
Subtract words and add words to
Yeah.
that phrase, so, yeah.
So, nor will he show regards for any other god. Interesting. For he will magnify himself above all. But instead, he will honor a god of fortresses, a god whom his fathers did not know. Interesting. He will honor him with gold, silver, costly stones, and treasure. And he will take action against the strongest of fortresses with the help of a foreign god. Interesting. He will give great hope to those who acknowledge him and will cause them to rule over many and will parcel out land for a price. Now, some people take this phrase to mean that the covenant, that starts the tribulation, all right, the peace covenant that starts the tribulation is a peace for land deal that also gives the Jews the part of the Temple Mount to build their third temple. All right. So this is where basically this parcel out land for a price is where some prophecy interpreters say that the peace arrangement that will kick off the Great Tribulation, which the Antichrist, man, it is cold in
I
here.
know, and I'm freezing.
Hey,
Am I the only one?
freezing. I'm
You're
wearing a sweater tonight.
Man,
Turn it off.
it said 79. I don't know. Anyways, so some people interpret this particular passage to mean that the peace covenant that kicks off the tribulation, which the Antichrist will be part of, but we won't necessarily know who the Antichrist is when that peace covenant comes into place. You're going to know who the group of people that it could be, but you're really not going to know who the Antichrist is until he's fully indwelled with Satan in the middle of the tribulation. Because in essence, we do this fake resurrection where he is, the Antichrist is somehow killed in the head, sword to the head, or probably shot in the head, and mortal wound, comes back to life, and that's the indwelling of Satan in the Antichrist. So now all of a sudden we know who the Antichrist is because no longer is he trying to hide it. But that doesn't happen until the middle of the tribulation. Get a little ahead of myself. That's Revelations. But this parcel out land for a price is where we get this, everybody going, as soon as the peace covenant gives away land for the ability for them to build the temple, that's one of the components of that peace agreement. And at the end of times, the king of the south will collide with him, the king of the north. And again, we go into this north and south thing again. Now, it's not the same kings at this point, because the king of the south will collide with him, and the king of the north will storm against him with chariots, with horsemen, and with many ships, and he will enter the country, overflowing them, and pass through. That is probably part of the Battle of Armageddon. Okay, so you got the chapter 39 and 40 of Ezekiel, which talks about the Magog, which is north. All right, and you talk about basically the south, with Egypt, and Egypt may be not siding with the Antichrist at that point. You get some crazy stuff there. I'm not going to go too much into that. He will also enter the beautiful land, and many countries will fall, but these will be rescued out of his hands. Now, interestingly enough, when we talk about the tribulation period, when we talk about the mark of the beast, there are lands which the Antichrist does not have control over, and it comes from this passage. But these will be rescued out of his hand. Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. That, and I'm going to mess it up a little bit, but that is Jordan, part of Jordan. So, interestingly enough, the city of Petra is where some believe that in the middle of the tribulation, the eagle's wings will rescue the lady, Israel, and put her in a safe land for a times and a half. All right? Well, that Jordan area is Edom, Moab, and the foremost of the sons of Ammon. That's that period, that area where Petra is. So the thought is the eagle's wings, again, you got to take it as an interpretation only, not as fact, is representing the United States, pulls out and moves the people from Israel into Petra, that city, that fortified city, and the Antichrist does not have dominion over them. Okay? Pretty interesting. All right? That's where this comes from. All right? Then he will stretch out his hand against other countries, and the land of Egypt will not escape. So we're talking about the king of the south coming up against him, and it's not going to end well. Not going to end well for Egypt. But he will gain control over the hidden treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and Libyan and Ethiopian will follow at his heels. So he's telling that you're telling you right there what the Antichrist is going to get. You get these battles going on. All right. But rumors from the east and from the north will disturb him, and he will go forth with great wrath to destroy and annihilate many. We are setting up the battle of Armageddon here. And lastly, wow, it's only 7:10.
All the time, yeah. What you're looking
Thank goodness I skipped some. All right, he will pitch his tent of his royal pavilion between the sea and the beautiful holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. You just learned about the end, the end of the Antichrist. When you start taking the end of this chapter 11, and you start taking a little bit of 12, and now throw on top of that Revelations and some of the other prophecies about the Antichrist, all of a sudden you get a very clear picture of what he's going to do. It's amazing. We go back to this, which basically takes Daniel and puts it across this 70-week timeline that we're right in the middle of, and you get all of this detail. So you take chapter 2, this, lay it down, and you start filling in the pieces. 70 weeks gets in there. Chapter 8 gets in there. Chapter 7 gets in there. Chapter 11 gets in here. And now you start throwing Revelations on top of that, and you get an extremely detailed picture of the end times. And I cannot believe
No, it's
that I got
you,
that.
we rushed this for nothing. So I was looking at Cleopatra. It was Antiochus the Third.
Was it the third? Okay, I couldn't remember if it was the third or the
It
fourth.
was the third, and then and that was from Syria. And then
Yeah.
she married the Ptolemy's
Yes.
son, and she was 11, he was 13, and
It was
later, she
ridiculous.
lived quite a while because then she had the alliance with Julius Caesar, Mark Antony.
Yep.
But they weren't in Jesus' time; they were before Jesus'
They were
time.
before Jesus' time.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Yep.
that's another issue. And it just depicts the history, unbelievable. So I wonder what Rome was doing during this time.
Well, Rome
Yeah.
Rome was just
Waiting.
beginning.
I call you back?
I mean, Rome was starting to build itself. You want me to talk to her? Rome was just starting to get on the map. Okay, so basically, because you had this infighting for 200 plus years between Alexander the Great and all this stuff. Okay, so Greece lasted for a while, enough to get their culture spread out throughout this entire land. And Rome starts building up. And as Greece is fighting with themselves, I mean, they're really fighting with themselves, Rome's building up, and they're just like, okay.
Just to throw one of those stones in the water, you look at how close the Roman Empire building up was to the Russian Empire at the time. If you'll go back to the map, and you look at the fact that they asked for Russian help, or asked for Roman help.
Yeah.
Okay, so how much of an influence might Upper have had on that?
I don't know. I mean, obviously these guys, I mean, this is where the Battle of Armageddon comes down to. Because the Battle of Armageddon is along the Euphrates River, which is, I'm right there, right? That's the Euphrates right there. Which basically is the entire Middle East, and it comes through Syria. So yeah, I mean, they're definitely playing a role. I mean, that's Moab.
I mean, it doesn't distinctly
Moab.
say it, but yeah,
Moab.
Moab.
Yeah.
Lot's started that tribe.
Whose?
Pardon?
Lot's
Yes.
daughter. Yeah, that's right.
Uh-huh. Yep.
In my map here, there's an Antioch, there's a Seleucia.
Mhm.
This was in Paul's time, I don't know now. But it was Antioch, I think it might still be there in Syria.
Oh,
Where did Jordan come in? Jordan wasn't there then. Was it part of the Arab, or part of Syria? It must have been part of Syria. Had to be part of Syria when you reached in Jordan.
Ammon's,
Amorites.
Amorites.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this
So
is
Jordan sits right next to, east of
It's up there
Lebanon.
on the map.
Yeah,
Jordan.
George right here.
Oh, okay, I sit there.
This is where, when you get down to it, everything that is going on is a family war. Because, you can go back to Noah and his sons, all right, and his 3 sons basically are what repopulated the world, okay? So now you start splitting up each of those sons into their different tribes, and it's all war. It's all war with the children of Noah. And it gets even more detailed when you get the children of Abraham, you know, and then, you know, it's crazy.
And one of the things that I look at when I'm seeing this is, you know, because in the very end, Israel is the one that's going to quote unquote win out because they're God's chosen nation. Now, you stop and think about what we're going through right now. Okay, now there was, there was 400 years there. Okay, so we're still in the grace. We may be more towards the end of grace. But when you stop and think about what we're going through right now, and this is just my own personal opinion, is that we are going to have to deal with ISIS and Muslims and Sharia law. And there may be another 400 years before that last week starts.
I don't know if you were here, and my wife told me I wasn't supposed to teach this because it didn't have anything to do with Daniel.
Yeah, I used to.
But the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the first 4 seals, you have 4 different colors. You've got white, you've got black, you've got red, and then you've got, in most versions, pale. And the pale is actually green.
Green.
I mean, because everywhere else that word is translated in Revelations, it's green. Well, white is, again, interpretation, take it for what it's worth. White, Holy Roman Empire. Black, capitalism. Red, socialism, communism. Green, the pale horse of death, Muslim, Islam.
And I've read, forgive me for,
No, this is
but I've read the entire series that Tim LaHaye and his gal, I don't know who here hasn't, if you haven't, read them all. But yeah, and so, at first I was thinking Catholic, and then I got to thinking about with ISIS and everything, okay, well, it may go back to where we're dealing with Catholic, but first we're going to have to deal with what's coming in between them.
Well, it's going to be at the same time because the Holy, again,
the Holy Roman Empire and ISIS are going to be parallel.
Because what you're going to see, well, I don't know about that. So the Islam, you've got the Sunnis and the Shiites. The Sunnis are sort of, I don't want to use the word reasonable, but that's your Saudi Arabia, UAE. That's Jordan. It's Egypt. Then you got your Shiites, which is ISIS. Okay, well, it's interesting.
Join or die.
Well, so but their end, their eschatology, their end times is like it's the same but different. They believe that the Mahajin, the 12th Imam, who is the Mahajin, is going to come back and basically kick off the world. Now, the Sunnis believe that he's here waiting. The Shiites believe that if they cause enough chaos in the world, that will bring him back. Jesus is in their eschatology almost playing the role of, I don't know if I'm going to say it right, it almost lines up perfect with ours, just backwards, just like the opposite, okay? Jesus, in essence, plays the role of the false prophet telling Jews that they're wrong, okay? Again, you got to remember that Muhammad came way after
300
Jesus.
years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay? And he knew our Bible, because
Yeah,
our
they were
Bible,
Christians. Some of them
the-
were Christian.
it had already been written and had already been canonized.
Descendant of Ishmael.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
And,
Abraham's
yeah,
son
and a lot of them
from
were already
Rebekah.
Christian, and they converted back.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they converted to.
So-
And they think that he stole, the Muslims think that we stole their heritage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because it all goes back to Abraham
Yeah.
and who was on the mount.
Yeah.
All right? Was it Ishmael or was it Isaac?
Well, and I've always, that's one of those things that has always kind of, for lack of a better term, devil's advocate. Okay, you had the son of promise,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had the son that he promised to give, and they're both, they're both 12 tribes, they're both great nations.
We're
Well,
going to
and he said he would make them both. And
Yeah.
He told, he told them.
But there's the son of promise,
Mhm.
and then there's the son that he made promises to.
Ooh,
So, I mean,
that's a
listen,
good way to put it.
there is no doubt that Islam
Is in it.
is
Is in
in
it.
this
Is in
end
there.
time.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
in
there,
there.
I mean,
I think
to
there
sit
is
there
too.
and say that it's not, how could it
makes
not be?
perfect
They're
sense.
right in the middle.
Then
So what you've got is how are they used by the devil? Because that's what it comes down to.
Mhm.
All right, how are they pawns in this
Of the devil.
fight? Okay, and the Holy Roman Empire thing is, there's no doubt in my mind, and this is not an anti-Catholicism at
No,
all.
no.
It's they will be used by the devil, and that's just we know that you got the feet of iron and clay mixed together.
Mhm.
Well, that's easy to sit there and say iron is the old Roman Empire and the dirt is basically the Holy Roman Empire, which is what it was back in Charlemagne. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
It's like a puzzle,
Yeah.
and he's throwing out all the pieces, and it's all there. It'll make sense when
So talk a minute about, when you talk about the false prophet,
Mhm.
who do we think that's gonna be?
Say that again.
The false prophet.
Say,
Who's that gonna be?
that's something that we don't know.
But what
But
do you even surmise?
Rest assured that he could either be right here among us right now,
What's that?
or
False prophet.
it could be one of those where, he has not
So
yet
do we
graced this
compare the
earth.
false prophet with what John the Baptist was? Because he was a
Mhm.
prophet at predicting Jesus.
Oh yeah,
And that's
I mean,
There
it's-
will
foil,
be.
foil of it.
Just
It's the
like,
trilogy.
like I
Go
was
back.
pointing out last week, you have your
Yeah.
trilogy.
yeah, it's a
Okay,
trilogy.
there's gonna be another trilogy.
Trilogy,
But
trilogy.
it's not gonna be a real trilogy.
The false prophet's not so much John the Baptist as it's probably the Holy Spirit.
Yeah,
Because
it's gonna be
you
a
got
false.
you got Satan, Father, Antichrist, Son, false prophet,
The Holy Spirit.
the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
Because the false prophet is basically going to be that one that stands up and says, "Look at this guy, isn't he great?
Mhm.
You know, he's the guy."
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, it talks
Now,
about
one of
seven
my
spirits that
questions-
he has.
Mm-hmm.
one of my questions on that though, is that even as Christians, the Holy Spirit was never, it was something that was given but never seen.
Yes. Correct.
So why not the same with the Antichrist?
Well,
Or the false
No, it
prophet.
says- it
Well,
says- it
well,
says
the front-
in Jesus that
they-
baptized in the name of God.
Indeed.
But there's a lot of
Yeah.
description of the Antichrist and
and the false prophet. Yeah.
yeah, and basically it doesn't go that way. It
Yeah.
doesn't say that
Okay,
he's
so
a
is
spirit.
that where the difference is
No,
gonna
it
be?
says
The
he's a
Holy-
ruler. He says he's very
That's what-
cunning. He says he gets all these followers behind him. He gets all the stuff that embodies him as
You
a.
mean the Antichrist you're saying?
Yeah.
No.
Antichrist and false prophet.
We were talking a little bit
So
about that tonight.
here's another thing to throw in the mix, and that is, and I'm going to get the prophecy wrong, but the Catholic Church has a prophecy about the last pope. All right,
See, and that guy goes with the tribulation stuff.
the last pope. I can't. It's Matt. I can't remember the guy's name, but it's basically the last pope is thought to be, in essence, the false
The false
prophet.
prophet, okay.
So just to clear up one thing, because I had to look it up because I get confused. ISIS, ISIL, Daesh, however you refer to him, is a follower of Safali jihadist, unrecognized proto-state that follows fundamentalist Wahhabi doctrine of Sunni.
It's Sunni?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
why
thought
it's so.
Shia.
No, it's the reason it's
Yeah.
confusing is because.
So they're fundamentalist Sunnis.
They're fundamentalist Sunni. I mean, if you go back to, they were the leftovers of Saddam Hussein in Iraq. He was Sunni, even though it was the minority in Iraq.
Yeah,
He
because
was
Shiite was the
he was Sunni, and so they were the controlling groups. The reason they were fought against by and basically overthrown at the end, it was because of the Shiites' influence from Iraq. Iran. Who came over and supplied fighters.
Because Iran doesn't like ISIS.
They don't like ISIS at all.
Yeah.
And
Russia likes Iran.
Yeah.
But not. Yeah.
Same with Syria.
Yeah.
And they don't like ISIS
And we're
either.
buddies with Russia.
Okay. But the other bad thing is that, okay, so what's that mean about Saudi Arabia, which is primarily Sunni?
It's primarily Sunni. Well, Egypt's Sunni.
So,
United Emirates is Sunni.
So maybe we had the opposite way. We said Shiite.
No, the Shiite. Shiites. I might have had it the opposite way. I may have
no,
messed
you had
that up.
everything right in there except for this confusion that's going on in Syria and Iraq right now. And because you don't know where the Saudis stand in there. Are they pumping money into ISIS or are they not? They're Sunni, they support them from that side, they don't like they don't like the uproar and the fundamentalist side of them, doing all this stuff. Basically
Well, at the end of the day, the Saudis are business people that really
Oh,
like
they
to
are.
and power.
I agree.
It's
And
all about
power.
control and power, right? The whole family, they've been in control since the 30s.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
What,
job.
Good job.
There are your last names. Discover power, brain, problems, all right. All right. I had to make sure I did that. So next week is it?
Never underestimate the power of Satan.
Yeah, there you go.
I know that was good.
Next,
World War I and World War II.
next week is it. We be done next week.
The end.
Yeah, the
I
end.
apologize, but I won't be here. I'm headed to Oklahoma.
No problem. All right.
I'll
That's
be
all.
here
We're gonna
to
talk
give
next
you
week.
that
Yeah,
one.
think about when you're gonna
Start again. Do we want to do summer or do we want to do fall?
Oh, we'll have to talk.
Fall.
I think we'll miss you in summer. Unless you do a short something in summer.
I'll come next week, send everybody into Babylon again. That means confusion.
All right.
I'll take the popcorn.
Thanks.
See, you made it. You rushed. We had plenty of time.
Oh, no, you could have
I know.
spent a couple of weeks.